Welcome everyone to Wrasslin' Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin' Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Are you making reference to that bionic-type looking woman?
Joe Giammatteo.
You know, I almost missed this recording. I almost didn't make it in time, but luckily a sewer rat started eating my big toe. And I saw the time.
Got you up in time.
And I made it.
And that's the way we like it.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on March 3rd, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Deutschland Hall in Berlin, Germany, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and the Honky Tonk Man on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. I just want to start out this episode saying that in a dark match of this episode, Sal Sincere defeated Alex the Pug Porto.
Oh, devastating loss for you.
Didn't get to see it.
Jobber of the Week versus Jobber of the Week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the Pug put up a good fight.
Right where it belongs on the dark match.
Yes, for no one to see on television.
The Pug made Sal Sincere look as good as he possibly could.
I'm sure he did.
I just, like I said, just wanted to get that out there before moving on to the ultra-serious topic of the Berlin Wall and the history lesson that we got from Vince.
And the more important information, the European title.
The Cold War, the Brandenburg Gate, and now that things have settled down, once again, the eyes of the world are on Berlin. Everybody, worldwide, Native Americans worldwide, on the edge of their seats, because tonight we're going to be crowning a new WWF European Champion. The final contenders are the British Bulldog and Owen Hart, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point in all of our viewing, this is the first update that we've got on just who exactly is participating in the European Championship tournament.
Far as I know.
As regular viewers of Raw, this is the first time we've heard,
We've known it's going on, just no updates on the actual tournament or, rankings, anything like that. And then they brought out Honky Tonk Man to join commentary. The Germans didn't give a single shiza about him at all.
Why would they?
The eyes of the world are once again on the Honky Tonk Man.
Elvis is worldwide. Everybody knows Elvis.
But not the Honky Man.
A gentleman named Karsten Schaefer is the ring announcer there in Berlin. He'll be doing a little translating for us later. But first, he'll be taking us into our first match of the night. Hunter Hearst Helmsley defeats Bret the Hitman Hart by disqualification in 17 minutes and 20 seconds. According to Vince McMahon, Hunter is just as pompous in Berlin as he is in Greenwich, Connecticut. We got a split screen during Hunter's entrance, and the Hitman cut a mean promo on what's about to happen, addressing the chance of Stone Cold Steve Austin showing up. The Germans were into this just at the entrances, booing Hunter, popping their asses off for Bret Hart. It seemed like we were going to have a pretty live crowd for the most part tonight. We did see Stone Cold entering the building in the middle of Vince's constant stream of consciousness flowing through the screen. And that's about when I was noticing that the pace here in the ring was a little bit slower than what we're used to. And I'm not complaining about that in this case, but it seemed like Vince was convinced that he needed to both be constantly talking and constantly throwing screen graphics up, split screens, etc. Just a whole bunch of shit going on our screens. That's going to be a theme throughout the night. That slow pace that I mentioned was actually giving this a better flavor, in my opinion. That slower pace allowed these two great workers to crisply work very tight moves to maximum effect. When Bret Hart started to take control with a superplex out of the corner, the work just looked amazing. Bret making his moves look and feel frustrated and aggressive like the promos that he's been cutting. Hunter raking the eyes to escape the sharpshooter was good. The crowd was really engaged with that. And just when I was typing that last note, Bret Hart shoved the ref, Earl Hebner, by the way, who immediately called for the bell and signaled the disqualification. He was real on top of the rules this time. That's not the end of things here. That huge woman, that Amazon, jumped into the ring to get between Bret Hart and a still prone Hunter Hearst Helmsley. She did a great job of making this look good. She challenged Bret Hart. Bret refused, and a small swarm of officials pulled her out of the ring, with this woman keeping eyes locked on Bret, laser focused the whole time as she was exiting the ring. That was great shit, pal. The officials escort her out to the entryway where she runs into Hunter Hearst Helmsley, celebrating his victory. Hunter shoves the officials away from her, and they walk out together. Joe, this match felt old school in its style. Maybe I'm just imagining things, I don't know, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. And while I didn't quite care for the way the DQ was worked with the referee shoved, I loved seeing the still unnamed Chyna here. She did a fantastic job. What did you think of our show opener?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good match. I'm glad that I got to watch it now, because on March 3rd, 1997, I probably would have changed the channel as soon as I saw Honky Tonk Man come out. And speaking of that, I would love to point out, even though in the past few years he's annoyed us a few times, but this show really shows how great of a commentator Jerry Lawler is, because he's not there. The Honky Tonk Man is so bad in that role that, to me, it's just putting over Jerry Lawler as a color commentator even more. So the commentary was terrible. However, the match was not. This was not bad, and it is, not a 5-star match by any means, but two good talents using their skills the best they can. And we are slow burning this Bret Hart heel turn. So, that explains the contact with the referee. The use of Chyna here is fantastic. Bret sort of acts like, I kind of want to hit this bitch, but I'm not going to, and walks out. Chyna just great, just standing there, almost kind of begging him to do it, but he doesn't, and they all go away. But I don't know, I do have to say I'm a little wore out by the surprise Chyna appearances at this point. This is like the third or fourth one up to this point. So yeah, hopefully we'll get her just come out to the ring with Hunter and be named Chyna very soon.
Yeah, I thought these two guys put on a good match. Like you said, Bartley, it just felt like a good old-fashioned wrestling match. And I guess that kind of makes sense with these two guys. They're both well-trained, good wrestlers, and it showed in this match. At the beginning, this German crowd really played into their stereotype of efficiency. I liked the one person's sign. It just said, Bret Hart equals number one. And then they turned it around, and it was Triple H with the cancel sign. Tells the whole story right there. The commentary with Honky, I agree, Joe. That was something that really stuck out to me as well, was, do I miss Jerry the King Lawler right now, because Honky is not doing it. Another great thing in this match, and this is mainly for me, was we learned that the Friday coming up, USA was going to be showing The Terminator, one of my all-time favorite movies, so I had to point that out. And they also tied it into the match when later Chyna comes out. That was the line I used. It was Vince says, "This bionic woman," tying her into Terminator. So I thought that was a good tie-in by him. I also thought that Bret Hart did an excellent job of almost intimidated by Chyna, but not completely, and wanted to hit her, but he didn't want to hit a woman. I just thought he did a great job of acting there that made it very believable. And as we've pointed out a few times now, Chyna looks great. She comes in and just does that death stare onto Bret Hart, and it worked. The crowd was behind it. I thought everything about this match worked. I thought it was a really strong way to start off this Raw.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I just want to highlight for our listeners, go back and check this out. This is Chyna pre-everything. Pre-plastic surgeries, pre-steroids, probably. I mean, if she's on the gas, she hasn't been on it that long.
I don't know about pre-steroids,
not that long.
Dude.
Oh, come on. Look at her, though. Compared to where she winds up.
Well, I'm not saying she won't take more steroids. I'm just saying she was probably already dabbling at this point.
Yeah, just a cycle or two. What's a cycle or two between friends? All right, let's move it along to live from the WWF studios. There's an empty chair there. I guess we were supposed to get an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he's not present. And then I what the fucked out loud when there was a cartoony toilet flush overdubbed over the audio.
Literally toilet humor. We got actual toilet humor.
Vince's favorite.
Vince and JR both reacted as if Steve Austin must be in the restroom. We moved there to some sweeping video shots of Berlin, beautiful looking city, and then back to the Royal Rumble to review that footage of Mil Mascaras standing around doing nothing. There was not a lot here in this segment, but I need to ask, Joe, toilet flush sound effect, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I just have noted here Vince's literal toilet humor that usually is not funny.
I mean, I have almost word for word. Literal toilet humor is what I had written down.
All right. Well, we won't dwell on that because we have something else to pay attention to our next match. Rocky Maivia defeats Vader with Paul Bearer by disqualification in 15 minutes and 1 second, retaining the WWF Intercontinental Championship. We started this with footage of The Undertaker punching Vader in the balls. That was nice. That was during a review of the Final Four main event, the In Your House pay-per-view. That quickly moved to the WWF Slam of the Week, which was actually 5 or 6 slams from the Undertaker-Farouk match, with no clarification on which one was the actual Slam of the Week. In a weird twist, we found out that Vader beat Rocky in a first-round bracket of the European Championship Tournament, so there's 2 names that participated that we didn't have before. That's good. After things get going, Vader sits in an obvious shot-calling headlock, telling Rocky what to do. JR passes that off really well by saying that Vader must really be talking some smack to Rocky there to psych Rocky out. Through the first commercial break, the work had been serviceable, nothing really noteworthy happening, and the most entertaining thing we had so far, in my opinion, were the views of the most beautiful man in wrestling, Paul Bearer. Whether he was reacting to the match or working the crowd, he looked great doing it. They telegraphed the hell out of Rocky reversing Vader out of the corner into a body slam. Vader started the mid-air tuck and roll way before his feet ever left the ropes. Vader also really hates selling punches and kicks, I've found. It seems like if you can maneuver him into something a little more impactful, he doesn't really have much of a problem selling that. But if you're just punching him and kicking him, he's not going to sell that shit at all. After a DDT reversal that looked pretty good, Vader pulled off his own mask for some reason. Wasn't sure why. But then Mankind, out of nowhere, and apparently not with the blessing of Vader, hits Rocky with the urn, drawing the DQ. Vader then drags Rocky back in the ring to savage Rocky like a wild grizzly bear. And much like a grizzly bear, Vader gets tired of mauling the victim after the victim plays dead and leaves Rocky to celebrate his victory. Vader was just there, as he usually is in this, but this also continues the trend of Rocky getting a little more cock-strong in his demeanor, shall we say. Ryan, what did you think of this?
I thought this match could have been a lot worse than it was with Vader in it. You know, it wasn't great, but serviceable is definitely the right term for it. And right from the beginning, it looks like the German crowd hasn't got the memo yet. They don't want Rocky to die. I didn't hear a single die Rocky die or Rocky sucks. They were cheering for him. He was a legitimate babyface there. And you're absolutely right about Vader. If you're going to punch him, he's just not going to sell it. I don't think he sold a single punch or kick in this match. But some of the slams he did okay with, and his stuff, to his credit, looked good, especially that powerful-looking clothesline, and Rocky did a great job of selling that. From there, we do go into the typical stall rest holds that we get from Vader, and I would agree the DDT, it looks solid for the most part, as graceful as a DDT on a 450-pounder is going to look, I guess. Yeah. The crossbody, that also maybe didn't look as smooth as some of his other crossbodies, but then it just kind of ends with Mankind. We don't get a real explanation as to why Mankind would come out and cause a disqualification. Maybe it's just playing into how deranged he is or whatever. But yeah, I came away thinking I didn't hate this match. We could have certainly been treated to something worse out of Vader.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It wasn't the worst we've seen from Vader, but There's definitely a clash of style here, mostly because I think Rocky is so new and he's younger and faster, and he might not be used to working with someone who is slow and washed up and terrible, maybe. You could tell there's a little bit of a clash there because, Rocky probably still needs a little bit of coaching in the ring. He'd be better fit with someone like Steve Austin or a Bret Hart or
Sal
Mankind
Sincere.
or Sal Sincere. So it's noticeable, but nothing real terrible. It would have been a lot better if Vader sold anything at all. Like you said, the kicks and punches, even the crossbody. I mean, the crossbody is a big move, and he completely no-sold that too. Something else I noticed with Rocky is he's definitely still trying to find his way. He's experimenting with stuff, like kind of calling his moves, like trying to get the crowd fired up for his crossbody, which we're going to see later when he starts using the people's elbow. It looks like he's sort of experimenting with that stuff right now, so it's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then Mankind comes out and there's no reason for it. He has no business being out here, first off, but he is deranged, so I guess that is the explanation.
Yeah, it's the only explanation I could come up with.
He gets a pass for it. All right. Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I mean, serviceable. It was there. And
also, there seems to be a trend with Vader pulling off his mask mid-match anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if he just, maybe after that cut, maybe that was why he got cut or something. He doesn't feel comfortable with it, but he seems to pull it off every match now, though.
The Final Four Bloodfest, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, yeah.
I just thought he was maybe trying to connect himself back to Boy Meets World. All right, let's go back to 2 weeks ago now, when Jerry Lawler issued the challenge to ECW. And then the following week, when the challenge was answered, we got some footage of the Sandman busting a beer can over his face. I think it was blurred out. It was so incredibly violent that they had to blur it out. They gave us quite a bit of footage from this episode. When it got to Tommy Dreamer using weapons against Devon Dudley, they blurred that out too, except for the steel folding chair, mind you. That stayed in. But that poor soul's walking cane that Tommy Dreamer took out of the crowd didn't make it past the censors.
That's a foreign object, pal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did love the new angle we got on the whole Paul Heyman, Jerry Lawler pull apart. And by that, I mean the new camera angle. This got a nice view of Vince there in the middle saying, hey, wait a minute, as he got stuck between the two. And that was it for this segment, another short one. Ryan, what did you think about the fact that they censored some of this footage that made it to live air last week?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked when I saw all of this blurred out footage. And then I think they even tried to blur out the Sandman's beer mist and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know what that was about. It was a little bit weird. The thing that stuck out to me, though, was when Lawler was on the phone. He talked about ECW showing up next week and said, next week, Raw will be war. And it looks like they're starting to push that tagline now. That isn't the last we're going to hear. We're going to hear it a few times here in this next segment that Raw is war. I think Doc Hendricks says it right after this segment in a commercial. So that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I had to laugh at pixelating the beer drinking, especially because Steve Austin is going to completely steal that gimmick and use it for years to come after this. So that's pretty funny. If you missed last week's episode of Monday Night Raw, don't worry, because you'll see just about everything from that show tonight.
Except for the new Blackjacks, for some reason. I wonder why. All right. Well, let's keep it going here. Let's talk about something else that I wish they would have blurred out. Our next match. The Sultan defeats Flash Funk by submission in 11 minutes and 17 seconds. Bob Backlund and the Sheik must not be allowed in Germany. They weren't here. But we did go straight to a phone call with Jerry Lawler, which was a very Lawler promo, trash-talking ECW there over the phone. The Funkettes also didn't make it to Germany either. Their absence was felt in my living room watching this. We broke to commercial then, which had a video montage of military gear like tanks and missiles being fired and all kinds of wartime violence happening. Next week, Raw is War will be coming from someplace in America, and I had missed it whenever Lawler said it there, Ryan. You quoted him, and I had thought that this was the first time that they had mentioned the tagline of Raw is War.
Yeah, I think Lawler stole Doc Hendricks' thunder here.
After that, we came back to the match in progress and immediately to split screen to show what we missed during the commercial break. Flash Funk tried to splash the Sultan. It didn't look like the Sultan wanted to take that, though, so he sidestepped Funk. This was at the outside. Funk mostly missed and went chest first to the mat on the concrete. Paul E. Dangerously rang in on the phone then, who then responded to Lawler's earlier promo. He made sure to get in the date of the upcoming ECW pay-per-view since Vince wouldn't. And there was an issue in the ring with Flash Funk's neck. I'm honestly not sure, given the amount of other things going on that we were directed to listen to or look at. But that led into the camel clutch and the end of this match. Joe, it's been a while since we got a good old-fashioned throwaway match with phone calls over it. What did you think of this?
Yeah, Sultan and Flash Funk are, they're two guys with just some of the most ridiculous looking ring gear that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
The Sultan gimmick, I guess, has some decent heat to it, but it's just so terrible that, I don't think anybody really cares that much. They're basically trying to do like a 1997 version of Iron Sheik, and it doesn't work for me, brother.
It reminds me of Quang. Just a ridiculous gimmick that has way too much shit to go on with it, and it just doesn't work. No one cares.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is, you mentioned they talked about Flash Funk like hitting his head or his neck or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. There was too much distraction going on that I totally missed it. I thought about rewinding it, but then I said, fuck, why would I want to do that and watch this any of this again? So I didn't.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt too.
I don't have really much to add. This was a complete colossal waste of time. It was just here for split screens and Lawler and Paul E. Dangerously to continue their feud. But I don't know, maybe the match was actually cut short because Flash Funk hit his head or neck and they had to, go home early. But real head scratcher here. This was nothing. It was here and then it was gone.
Yeah, nothing to add to that, although maybe they cut it short to make room for this next enormous segment of review material. They had to do it. Last October, Stone Cold threw a production tech through some ladders in the studio before assaulting a security guard.
We're going all the way back to October. Jeez.
Yeah.
By the way, that guard ended up resigning as a result. That's per JR.
He should have.
Humiliated. We got a lot of footage again here, filling time between matches. Those German fans must have had a lot of fucking patience if they got this shit going on. Because, they're not seeing this. They're just sitting there in between matches.
Probably got another dark match.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe. We were still waiting for Stone Cold to show up at the live WWF studio and give a new interview. Mankind, here we find out Mankind's going to be challenging Sycho Sid for the championship later on. Supposedly Mankind was speaking German, so they went to Sycho Sid to get Sycho Sid's comments. This is a game. Sid is the master and ruler of the game. The Undertaker's going to lose at WrestleMania. Sid is the master and ruler of the world. Typical Sid fare here. After a commercial break, we went back to the In Your House Final Four again, highlighting the conflict there between the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. And Joe, this made me think of you. Every rehash of the recent history between Owen and the Bulldog made my taint just a little more chapped.
Our taints are just rock hard at this point. Just
calloused over.
There, in the ring, Ahmed Johnson was making his way down the entryway. I thought that was hilarious because Ahmed is unintelligible at the best of times, and I wondered how this was going to sound to the German-speaking crowd.
Well, they got a translator.
Well, They can say you're going down just fine.
Oh, they can. The announcer did some translating. The audio got a little screwed up, and it was really hard for me to understand what Ahmed was saying because it was very subdued, like the actual volume was subdued on it. But I did recognize when Ahmed got the crowd going in a "You're Going Down" chant, which of course prompted Vince to say, "In any language, it's the same. Oh my goodness." And we got a moment to put over WrestleMania, which I think is 3 weeks away at this point, right?
Yeah.
Reviewing the card, yeah. There's going to be a Chicago street fight. We're going to have a submission match. We've got The Undertaker fighting for the belt. Sounds like it'll probably be a pretty good time. Now that we've looked forward, let's look back again to the return debut last week of the Legion of Doom. After that, we got some footage from Shotgun Saturday Night. Hawk and Animal cut a great promo to Kevin Oh My God Kelly. Hawk was shining in this especially. Hawk said that the last time the Legion of Doom had their psychological profiles checked, it didn't look good, and it never has been and never will be. He finished that up with a "what a rush," which I popped my ass off for. Joe, we got a lot of filler here. We did also get some new info. What did you think about Sid's promo, LOD's promo, and anything in between?
Well, Sid is the typical just screaming bloody murder into the camera. Nothing exciting there. The Ahmed Johnson interview was just very brief. I don't know what the purpose of any of that was, just to get him out in front of the crowd for 2 seconds, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they liked that. I don't know. By the way, WrestleMania is happening.
Yeah. Surprise.
In 2 weeks, guys. Yay. Yeah, just so much filler here, but then we get to the highlight from Shotgun Saturday Night with LOD's promo, and that woke me up.
Yeah.
Because that was some pretty good stuff. Animals sort of takes like a Scott Steiner approach to his promos, and Hawk is just Hawk really he's really good on the mic. Yeah. He's got like the craziness of an Ultimate Warrior, but says other things too that kind of make me think of like Mankind or Undertaker. Like he just sometimes throws in like disgusting shit, like talking about the sewer rats.
So he made me think, and this is no disrespect to Hawk in the least bit, but he made me think of a dumber Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, a little bit more authority behind it though. But it was great. I loved it, and I loved watching Kevin Kelly's facial reactions to it too.
Yeah, we got a whole lot of filling material here. We learn Mankind speaks German. We're going to hear that. That's something new that we learn. Sid's promo, it's what we get out of Sid time and time again. Not much of a change. Ahmed coming down. When he started the "You're Going Down" chant, I was pretty disappointed. I thought we gave that up a little while ago. It's one of the most lame chants that I've ever heard a wrestler try and get going. More than once. Maybe you do it once at a show somewhere, but not as like your go-to call line that you use. It's just dumb. And then the best part of this entire segment, the Hawk and Animal Shotgun Saturday Night promo, that just it took the cake here, and yeah, popping my ass off over that. That was fantastic.
Yeah, totally agreed on that. What a rush.
You're going down.
Yeah, like he gets this, what percentage of that German crowd speaks English, I wonder? Like he just got a chant going and they were saying it and they don't even know what they're saying.
I think you're underestimating Europe.
Yeah.
I probably am. Well,
yeah.
Europe in 1997. I mean, the Berlin Wall just came down 6 years ago.
Still.
I mean, this is the best thing to happen to Berlin in years at this point.
Which is why they would go out and learn English before it came to town.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe that this would be their first exposure to it after the Wall. Because, I mean, nothing has happened between the Wall and this. All right, let's keep it going here. Sycho Sid is going to be in this next match, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think of it. As I said, our next match. Sycho Sid defeats Mankind with Paul Bearer by pinfall in 10 minutes and 28 seconds to retain the WWF Championship. We got a great video of Mankind cutting promos in German. I had no idea what he was talking about. You can kind of glean some of it, but it looked and sounded great. After that, the filler material trend continued with a bunch of recap videos from the events thus far tonight. And when it was finally time for Sid to come out, the crowd popped. The match got going, and Mankind's willingness to sell hard for Sid really made Sid look great at the beginning of this. And credit to Sid, too. I don't know this for a fact or anything. This is just me imagining this, but I got the feeling that Mankind was telling Sid before the match, just lay it in, man. You don't need to pussyfoot me here. Let's just go out and have a good time. And because it looked like Sid was laying it in a little more believably than he usually does whenever he's babying people in the ring. Over in the WWF studios, they found Stone Cold Steve Austin. We went into split screen with him, distracting us from the championship match in the ring. Stone Cold cuts a very Stone Cold promo here. This isn't even the official Stone Cold promo either, interview I mean. Stone Cold manages to tie the flushing toilet sound earlier to being sick of Bret Hart's whining, which I thought was great. And after that, back in the ring, Mankind was in charge, and it was looking pretty good. I loved Sid running across the ring to kick Mankind in the head. Something about it just tickled me. It was a great visual. And I also think I'm developing an acquired taste for Sid's windmill punches. They're not always great, but nobody else really does it like that. They're very uniquely Sid, and he always just looks like he's really winding up and putting tons of force into it. We found out that we can call 1-900 Shameless and get news on Ken Shamrock, Sable, and WrestleMania. By the way, Ken Shamrock is scheduled to be on Raw next week, so keep that in mind. Mankind applied the claw to Sid, who would not submit, who would not let the mandible claw pin him, and then also stood up out of the mandible claw. And I had no idea what to think of that. I mean, I guess the mandible claw is fucking meaningless now, maybe? I don't know. Still don't know how to take that. In the end, Sid won with a powerbomb, much to the crowd's happiness and mine, since it actually looked pretty darn good. Ryan, not surprising here, but I thought Mankind got a pretty decent match out of Sid. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it started off with Mankind cutting this German promo, and I think everyone was probably shocked. But the German crowd, I'm sure, fucking ate this up, right? I mean, how many, I'm sure, was the only superstar there that actually took the time to speak to them in their language. So I'm sure that got a good pop for him. And when the match started, Mankind was just throwing his body around for Sid and just really selling well for him. There was a spot where Sid clotheslines Mankind over the top rope, and Mick just violently crashes to the ground and just makes a average everyday move like being clotheslined over the top rope just look that much more violent just because the way he sells it. And when Mankind takes over, I thought Sid did a pretty good job for Mankind, too. Mankind lands a pretty nice-looking leg drop from the second rope, and I just love how Mick, in every match or two, he'll pull out some move that you just don't expect to see from him, and it gets executed perfectly, and it just looks good. And it's just one of the things I love about him. I wasn't crazy about Sid getting out of the mandible claw. Like you said, it was almost killing it. But in return, they immediately had Mankind kick out of Sid's choke slam. So they at least gave a little, tick for tat there. Sid does end up pinning after the power bomb, but I thought all around it was a pretty entertaining match. And I think after this one, I got to put Mankind in that small handful of people that could get a good match out of Sid, because I was entertained.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Mankind was great in this, and almost looked as if, that was pre-planned for Mankind. He probably said, I have to sell my ass off for this guy. I've grown completely tired of Sid matches at this point. I have no positivity going into a Sid match anymore. He just he sets up every move for his opponent. He doesn't sell very well at all. And, we've said it before. He's one of those guys. It's like he's got all the tools, but then the bell rang.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. But I think WrestleMania is going to essentially be his swan song anyway. I think he only lasts in the WWF for a few more months after that. So I guess, he's going to be probably phased out of this main event picture here very soon, which is a positive. And boy, Paul Bearer sure has been taking a lot of bumps for a fat guy, right? Yeah. He's been flying off the ring apron a few times here, and it's just, I don't know. I don't like it. It just doesn't look comfortable at all.
Yes. Many things here are not comfortable. One of those being Shotgun Saturday Night 9 days ago. Another flashback to the past, and unfortunately this one involved Crush. But it did start the severance of Clarence Mason from the tag champs when Clarence helped Crush beat the Bulldog in their match. Right there on the spot, the Bulldog fired Clarence Mason, much to Owen Hart's chagrin. We didn't really get any kind of information on what Owen Hart thought about all of that. But it does address a lingering concern, Joe, that you'd brought up a couple times about Clarence Mason representing both the tag champs and Nation of Domination. He's down to representing a single faction now, so that's a good thing. We'll get to more Stone Cold Steve Austin soon, and later on, La Femme Nikita. We got some of that great WrestleMania music before going to Stone Cold. And even Stone Cold's segment was going to start with footage from the past. Vince telling a long, dramatic, and prompting story about the recent history of Stone Cold and Bret Hart, all while Stone Cold just sits there and stares at the camera waiting for Vince to get done. And Stone Cold's finally allowed to cut a promo, and it's a great one. He at one point has to clarify that he's not making fun of one-legged people, he's just trying to make a point. Thought that was hilarious. Stone Cold addresses Ken Shamrock's comments from last week, whenever Shamrock said that he wasn't able to pick a winner in a submission match between Bret Hart and Stone Cold. Stone Cold turned that into some gold about Stone Cold not being able to quit. Vince McMahon, on the other hand, can't ease up on the bitterness of this man. He's so bitter. Before we move on to the main event, Ryan, Clarence Mason is fired from managing the tag champs, and Stone Cold cut a hell of a promo here. What did you think of this segment?
I hated seeing the Bulldog take a loss to Crush. That's a real blow to someone's ego. But it did wrap up this Mason controversy thing or confusion, and we got Mason out of Team Bulldog and Owen, and now he's just with the Nation, where it should have been for the last month or so. They should have taken care of this from the start. The interview with Stone Cold was fantastic. This was just classic Stone Cold. He starts ripping into Bret Hart. I also loved Stone Cold address the fact that he didn't hit Bret Hart very hard with that chair, saying he wishes he would have hit him harder. That was good. Yeah, I mean, all around, this was just a fantastic promo. Stone Cold he is on fire at this point, and there's no looking back. He ends it calling Vince McMahon a jackass and then sends it back to him. Great Stone Cold, classic stuff from him.
Yeah, finally some closure on the Clarence Mason thing with Owen and Bulldog. He is not with them anymore, which makes sense. And yeah, I agree with the Austin interview. I think he had the volume turned up just a little bit too high, but it was still pretty good stuff. All the typical classic Steve Austin stuff was said here. And yeah, calling Vince a jackass at the end is a nice little taint tickler for what we're going to see in a few months.
It's such a great word for Vince McMahon, too.
It is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Of all the things that he could call him, jackass is pretty damn perfect.
And Stone Cold is sort of working that whole thing with like, I'm not afraid of anyone type of thing, including you, Vince McMahon. You know, he's really working that pretty well.
Agreed. All right, so we've had tons of build-up to this, not just over the past couple months, but this episode. There's been a shit ton of flashbacks to it, the relevant history of our final match of the night. The British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, defeats Owen Hart by pinfall in 16 minutes and 58 seconds to become the first WWF European Champion. I fucking love that somebody in Germany brought a British flag to the entryway for the Bulldog to stop and hold up. That was great. We finally found out that the tournament was an 8-man single elimination tournament. The Bulldog eliminated Mankind and Vader in his brackets. Owen defeated Flash Funk and Bret the Hitman Hart in his, with Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Rocky Maivia losing in the first round. That's the tournament. The Bulldog was looking like his gas tank was a little empty here. He was like, I don't know, like a normal, physically fit human being instead of a jacked specimen. He didn't look bad. He didn't work bad at all, but he just looked a little small. That's all. Trading locks and holds at the start of this looked fantastic, and, whenever they botched a monkey flip in the corner, the Bulldog was able to work it off. He sold it as a reversal. That was great shit, pal. And it didn't stop. The action between these two was fantastic, up through the point where the Bulldog put Owen out of the ring and does his little nip-up thing that he does. The powerbomb leading up to that especially looked good. We've got a graphic up there on our screen. Next Monday, starting at 7:57 Eastern, not 8 o'clock, 7:57 exactly. Raw is War, with the official graphic up on the screen. My God, the nostalgia juices flowing through that one. Owen played possum with his knee. He was using some dirty tactics to get the Bulldog in a compromising situation, and that's when the energy got turned up here with some great high-speed, high-power rope work into a fantastic enziguri. Whenever the Bulldog was Irish whipped into the corner, the Bulldog really laid it in and made sure to give himself some extra oomph hitting that turnbuckle. I loved when Honky Tonk Man said that Stu Hart had a brain seizure last week, and then did a Stu Hart imitation and laughed heartily about it. I joined him in that laughter. That just tickled the hell out of me. We broke to commercial for the WWF Rewind, sponsored by Karate Fighters. Now, there's a tournament that I hope we get to see, which rewound back to China in the ring earlier this evening. After that, back in the ring, Owen and Bulldog continued to do great work. I decided that I should probably try to be a nitpicking dickbag here, so I had my opportunity. The reversal of the superplex into a crossbody looked a little weak. But again, that's me looking for something to criticize here because I wasn't seeing very many missteps or bad things all around here. The Bulldog sold the living shit out of another enziguri after trading pinfalls. That looked amazing. And the Bulldog dragging himself to the ropes while in the sharpshooter. We got a great camera angle of that. The Bulldog straining and fighting to get out of it. That was really well done. And it stayed tight right through to the finish. A final roll-up pin to crown the new European champion. There continued to be tension between Owen and the Bulldog there in the ring, despite the happy celebration and handshakes between the two. And that's it. We faded to black with the Bulldog's arm raised in victory. Joe, I thought this was a fantastic match, and sure, we're still getting our taints tickled with this whole breakup angle, but if it's going to give us matches like this, I don't care. What did you think about it and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Yeah, I guess, forget about the taint tickling when we get a match like this. But just want to start out by saying JR mentions that it's been over 20 years since the WWF has introduced a new championship title. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
The Intercontinental title was introduced in 1979. So this European title, to me, it's actually a pretty cool looking title too. They kept it pretty simple and similar to the other titles that they currently have.
Yeah.
And yeah, early on in this, I was loving the shit out of this match early on. It's kind of a shame that the lighting was so bad in this arena because it has that, again, we have that feed that almost looks like it's like 1980s wrestling, which is unfortunate, but it didn't really take away from it that much. I mean, this was just an amazing match with tons of near falls. Some rest holds, but they were timely, and everything in between was just good action. Both guys showing off their strengths, and there was even, some in-ring psychology going on. Owen Hart was faking a knee injury at one point to distract the Bulldog, and then there was a couple handshakes in the middle of it, as showing sportsmanship for each other. So I thought it was really great. If I wanted to be a nitpicking dickbag, the only thing that I didn't like was the British Bulldog's pin was a little bit weak. It almost looked like Owen could have easily kicked out of that, but it doesn't take anything away from the match. I thought the match was great. I actually thought the match was over after the power slam, but Owen Hart kicked out of that.
Yeah.
Which was great too. So, they got me there. So yeah, I mean, on paper, this really should have been at least a 4-star match considering who's in the match, and to me it was. I really enjoyed it.
I completely agree with both of you. This was a real fun match to watch. And, it's not a surprise. We've got brother-in-laws here with each other. They train together. They've wrestled a million times. And it shows. They're able to put together a very good-looking and well-choreographed match. The spots just come quick and fast and smooth because they've done it a million times. I don't even really have much to nitpick. I really don't. And there's not a ton to talk about because I spent time just enjoying this match. And to their credit, to Owen and Bulldog's credit, they delivered from bell to bell, really. And then the ending, I thought they did a really good job with the end here, too. They went back and forth. We have Owen kicking out of the Bulldog's power slam, and then they reverse each other a couple times before Bulldog's able to sneak in this quick pin. So yeah, I was able to completely block out the taint tickling. Even at the end, when they started doing it again, I didn't care because I was having such a fun time watching the match. And I thought it was a worthy match of a new title. I thought they picked two great people to put it over. Obviously, you want to have a European win it first, so we get the Bulldog with the victory here. All around, great shit.
Yeah, completely agreed. And I think you hit it on the head there, Ryan. A new championship, and it deserves nothing less than a fantastic championship level match. And we got that here. 100% satisfied. All right. Well, as I said, we faded to black there. So let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
Well, my highlight is the Owen Hart British Bulldog match. I feel like this match, I mean, I know there are better matches in 1997, but I feel like this match it never gets talked about and probably should more often because it was a great match on Raw and it was to debut this new championship title. So I thought that was great. The low light for me, I was almost going to go with Honky Tonk Man's commentary, and it was pretty terrible, but I have to go with, again, all of the filler, because there was just so much filler here, and we are a couple weeks away from WrestleMania, and we seem to not really give a shit about it.
My highlight, I'm going to be right there with you. The Owen Bulldog match for the European title. I mean, not much to add. We just got done talking about it. I think it's easy to see why we picked that as our highlight. The low light, I'm going to have to go with the Sultan Flash Funk match. It was completely forgettable. It felt like we went back in time a couple years and got one of those worthless throwaway matches. And so, yeah, it took the low light.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to be falling pretty closely in line with you here. My highlight is actually a tie between Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Bret Hart and Bulldog versus Owen. Bulldog versus Owen, obviously the better of those two, but I really enjoyed Hunter versus Bret, and they were two fantastic bookends on a show that was almost all low light in the middle, and my low light is going to be the constant flashbacks, distractions, time-killing filler. It really made up the bulk of the content on our screens in between those two matches, so didn't really care for that too much. And Joe, you also put a really great spin on it with WrestleMania coming up. Like, what the fuck? Why couldn't we have something that was devoted to that instead of all of this shit that's happened months ago?
Biggest show of the year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we've barely discussed it at all.
All right, well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary Wrasslin news from on and around March 3rd, 1997 for us?
Yes, from the Wrestling Observer, I have some star ratings and some comments on tonight's matches from Dave Meltzer, if you guys want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
We start with Bret Hart versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Dave gave that 2 stars, saying solid work, but a terrible finish. Rocky Maivia versus Vader. Dave Meltzer gave that 2.5 stars. He said Vader did a very good job of carrying Maivia here to a good match.
Okay.
Vader carried Rocky? Is that what he said?
That's what he said.
What is Dave Meltzer's thing with Vader? He always gives Vader...
Well, Vader is huge in Japan.
Oh,
so.
There's the tie-in. There's the tie-in.
The Sultan versus Flash Funk, 5 stars. Just kidding. 1 star. Sid versus Mankind. Pretty good match due to Mankind's bumps. 2.5 stars. Dave Meltzer apparently did not like the Owen Hart British Bulldog match, saying that this can be described as a show where the sum was not nearly as good as the parts. So, guess he didn't like it. Dave Meltzer has been referring to China in The Observer as Joni Lee. I'm not sure if that was a working name they were possibly going to use, but up to this point, that is the name that he has been using when referring to her. But he did note that she was working under the name China in Europe this past week. Brian Pillman has been hitting the ropes and training for the first time since his automobile accident about a year ago.
It's good to
So
hear.
look for Brian to make a comeback. And Miguel Perez, guys, you probably remember him clearing the ring last week. He has apparently signed a 3-year contract with WWF. And that is all for this week, guys.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin' Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on March 10th, 1997, with matches featuring Aldo Montoya, Roy Raymond, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin' Raw.